Thomas Fitzpatrick was a very accomplished artist. He was probably one of the finest political cartoonists of his time, not just here, but you know, in London with Punch magazine, and then you had Condé Nast, Thomas Nast. But he was very much reacting against the portrayal of the Irish in foreign periodicals, and I think that's one of the reasons he opened up the Lepracaun. He was also a great campaigner for what we'd now call human rights. He was obsessed with the poverty that coexisted alongside the immense wealth of Dublin at that time. And he felt it was a political issue, so he brought it right into the faces of the politicians, full force. I grew up in a house where we had the remnants of Thomas Fitzpatrick's library, 5 books and 2 volumes of his cartoons. And I used to pretend I was him and pretend to draw like him when I was young. Of course, I wasn't any good. I did try my hand at political cartooning. I was an abject failure. But I worked for Hibernia and did some covers for them, stuff like that. But it was when Pearse Street Library rang me and asked me to come down and have a look at some of his original artwork, my hair stood up. I didn't realise there was any original artwork surviving. It was quite astonishing. And to see the sort of work he was doing at that time was fascinating, but to see the original artwork with his annotations, even what size they should be printed, all these little notes to the plate makers, I just found it a revelation, and I've been kind of becoming slightly obsessive about him now. I need to know more and more, and thanks to the research we have from James and from Kieran, we have a book of his work that fills areas in his life in that I had no idea about. They have done an enormous amount of research. I only saw him as a kind of a quasi-mythological figure, a grandfather who died in 1912, and all I knew about him was kind of an oral tradition and some of his work. Very little though. It's wonderful to see him acknowledged. This is a man who is not written out of history, but simply vanished from history, as a lot of people do. And it's wonderful to see his work revived and attention drawn to his work, and especially his times and the environment he worked in analysed, because I find it a fascinating period. You're talking about from the turn of the previous century up to about 1912 when he died. And there's a whole social history there that I'm interested in anyway.